In the last week, we've been hearing how they're not happy that having moved from the public service to, with the promise of working from the public service to Keolis Downer, our new operators of the train system, they may have a change in their pay and conditions, and they're holding out to make sure that they get guarantees. This is a very similar situation, it seems, to the nurses who formerly worked for dom care or domiciliary care, and who, when that contract was awarded to the Royal District Nursing Service, came over under their employ. Right now, they're threatening to take industrial action over potential cuts to their wages and conditions. Let's find out a little bit more from Billy Elrick, South Australian Branch Secretary of the Health Services Union. Hello, Billy.
Hello, Sonia. Thank you for having me.
How many people or nurses are we talking about who might be impacted?
So the workforce that is impacted that came over from domiciliary care is mainly your allied health professionals, your administrative staff, and a good portion of the direct care staff. So the people out in the community providing direct care to those who are either needing supports at home or needing support in a residential facility.
And so when that contract went to the Royal District Nursing Service, what was the guarantee given to those staff members who would then come under the banner of RDNS?
So at the time, the staff that were with domiciliary care, they had the option to either stay in the public sector or move across to RDNS. And the large majority of them chose to move across to RDNS because they were promised in meetings that they would never be worse off under RDNS's employment, which is right now, RDNS is breaking that promise by proposing to cut their wages and their conditions.
In what ways? What are you being asked to accept?
So their wage cuts are quite significant. What they want to do is essentially integrate them into a wage structure that WA has. So some members are looking at facing thousands of dollars off their salary each year. Having discussions with some of our members, that means refinancing their home. It's difficulties in supporting their families, especially with a few whose partners and such have lost jobs during the recent crisis.
So up until now, have we had different pay structures for the same job within the RDNS system?
Not within South Australia, because RDNS didn't have this service or before they bought out domiciliary care. So it was something that South Australians always had, previously managed by the government, now being managed by RDNS. So RDNS didn't have this structure before they bought out this service, and they wouldn't have had the increase to their profits and the increase to their client base if they didn't buy out this service.
And so those who were existing workers of RDNS were on different pay rates or conditions because they actually had different jobs. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And they're still facing significant cuts under what RDNS is proposing. RDNS wants to slash a week of their annual leave, for example, for those who work weekends.
Billy, what sort of response have you got to negotiations with RDNS?
Look, the response has been pretty poor. We've reached a bit of a deadlock, and that is why we're progressing to industrial action, taking it back to our members. And members are very angry and frustrated that RDNS has broken their promise and putting them in this position. They feel that they have no other option but to escalate their actions.
And in what way would they escalate their actions?
So we do a range of things. Being a former disability support worker myself, we don't just rush out and form a picket line like you may expect at a factory. We speak to the families and the clients themselves about what is going on. We can't always do that outside of industrial action due to policies. We look at putting campaign materials and things like that around the place. And then also we do some strike action, typically only for an hour or two, and there's always safe staffing left on shift to ensure there's no impact to the client base.
So your industrial action is being planned to hurt RDNS, not the clients?
Absolutely. We wouldn't do anything to hurt the clients, and the clients often support us quite strongly in the industrial action. The clients understand that if their staff wages get cut, those staff may leave and move on, people they've had long-term working relationships with, and they may get in people who are not as skilled or as trained. To have quality services, you need quality staff, and you don't get quality staff if you don't pay them correctly.
Why do you think the requests for change are not acceptable? I'm sure RDNS values these workers quite significantly, but, you know, things don't stay exactly the same. Why do you think these changes aren't fair?
Look, we just want a fair deal. We don't think it's right to have promised these staff that they would never be worse off under RDNS and then in a short period make them worse off. Many of these workers would have stayed in the public service if they knew that was the case, like many of the train drivers are currently staying in the public service. We're flexible. Our workers understand that it's tight and difficult economical times and they weren't seeking too much out of the new enterprise agreement. But I think it is pretty fair and reasonable that they're not having to refinance their mortgages or things like that just to save RDNS a few bucks. Further to that, from what I can tell online, looking at their financial reports, RDNS is doing well. They're not an industry that has suffered hugely through the pandemic. So we're not quite sure what financial reasoning RDNS has for cutting these workers. They haven't told us about it.
So, Billy, this industrial action that you're looking at, when will this take place if you're not getting any joy from RDNS?
Yeah, so our hope is it doesn't have to take place. Our hope is that RDNS comes to the table and sticks to its previous commitments. But if not, we've just started the Fair Work Commission process late last week. That can take up to 30 days. We have to go through a ballot and all that. So hopefully by the start of March or around that time, we'll be looking at doing some industrial action and get some strike action going then.
Billy Elric, thank you very much for your time. South Australian Branch Secretary of the Health Services Union. You may well be someone who uses the services that we're talking about here and have a view on it. Give us a ring. What do you think? Maybe you're someone who works in that role. 1300 222 891, or you can text through on 0467 922 8.